He built an empire out of beer, bullets, and fear, and made Chicago the battlefield of a silent war. If you love stories about power, betrayal, and the shadows of history, make sure to subscribe because this one changes everything. Chicago, January 16, 1920, 12:01 a.m. The Volstead Act takes effect. The manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol is now illegal across the United States. By dawn, breweries go dark, barrels are smashed, and men with badges patrol the alleys. But in the shadows, new entrepreneurs take note. Among them, a Brooklyn-born bouncer named Alphonse Capone. Within months, the city's saloons reopen behind locked doors. Passwords replace menus. Money changes hands in the dark. The police look the other way, for a price. Southside is carved up by the Chicago outfit led by Johnny Torrio. Torrio understands profit better than politics. He calls it business, but business needs control. Rival gangs, the O'Banion Northsiders, the Aiello brothers, the Jenner family, all want their slice. The prize isn't just whiskey. It's beer. By 1921, beer is liquid gold. A keg costs $50 wholesale, $150 on the street. Torrio and his men buy up closed breweries, converting them into secret operations. Capone, his trusted lieutenant, oversees distribution. Trucks marked bakery supplies. Drivers armed with sawed-off shotguns. Deliveries move through 22nd Street, Cicero Avenue, and Halsted. Bribes go out weekly. Police captains, aldermen, even Prohibition agents. One envelope per man. In return, silence. But silence never lasts. In April 1922, Big Jim Colosimo, Torrio's old partner, refuses to join the bootlegging racket. He prefers the brothel trade. On May 11th, he's shot in the vestibule of his restaurant, Colosimo's Cafe at 2126 South Wabash. Witnesses see a man in a brown overcoat leave the scene. No one speaks. Torrio inherits the empire. The first beer war begins that summer. The Jenner brothers flood Little Italy with their own beer. Torrio's trucks are hijacked near Ashland Avenue. 2 drivers are found beaten and dumped in an alley. The Jenners send word, stay out of Taylor Street. Torrio sends Capone. Capone visits Angelo Jenner in a darkened saloon on Loomis Street. The meeting lasts 5 minutes. When Capone leaves, a bottle smashes against the wall. Days later, a Jenner brewery is raided, tipped off by anonymous calls. Retaliation follows. Gunfire erupts at dawn. 2 Torrio men are shot while unloading barrels behind a bakery. Witnesses count 20 shell casings. None talk. The violence escalates. Chicago police record 37 gang-related murders by the end of 1923. Newspapers call it the Beer Wars. Ordinary citizens call it terror. Torrio's organization grows. By 1924, he controls hundreds of speakeasies and earns nearly $100 million annually in today's money. Capone becomes his right hand. Running Cicero, a suburb outside Chicago's jurisdiction, Cicero offers safety, fewer raids, more profit. On Election Day, April 1, 1924, Torrio orders his men to ensure the outfit's candidate wins for mayor. Capone's crew storms polling stations, smashes ballot boxes, and beats rival supporters. Police respond. Gunfire breaks out on 22nd Street. 2 officers die. Dozens injured. Newspapers print Capone's name for the first time. The new mayor, Joseph Clenhar, wins. Cicero is now under outfit control. With Torrio's blessing, Capone expands operations. He buys police chiefs, judges, and city officials. He hosts charity events by day, funerals by night. Each beer truck now carries armed guards. Rival trucks are hijacked, breweries burned, warehouses raided. It's business by other means, with bullets instead of contracts. But competition remains fierce. Across town, Dean O'Banion runs the Northside gang out of the Schofield Flower Shop on State Street. O'Banion is Irish, sharp, and ruthless. He buys his beer from local breweries and sells to upscale speakeasies on the north side. He doesn't like Capone's expansion south of the river. In November 1924, O'Banion double-crosses Torrio. He invites him to buy into a brewery deal, then tips off the police. Torrio is arrested during the raid. Furious, he swears revenge but waits. 6 days later, O'Banion is arranging chrysanthemums in his shop when 3 men walk in, all dressed in suits. One shakes his hand. Another fires 2 bullets into his chest, 2 in the neck, 1 in the cheek. The men walk out calmly. O'Banion dies on the floor surrounded by flowers. Police find 538 casings. No witnesses come forward. The killing marks the start of the second phase of the beer wars. The North Side retaliates. Jaime Weiss and Bugs Moran, O'Banion's successors, launch raids on Capone's breweries. In January 1925, Torrio is ambushed outside his apartment building. His car boxed in, gunmen open fire. Torrio is hit in the jaw, lungs, and abdomen. He survives, barely. After weeks in the hospital, Torrio decides he's done. He tells Capone, "It's yours now." Then he leaves for Italy. Capone takes over the Chicago outfit. He's 26 years old. Capone shifts strategy. No more hiding. He moves into the Metropole Hotel, then the Lexington on Michigan Avenue. He buys expensive suits, drives a bulletproof Cadillac, and carries a Thompson submachine gun in his car trunk. The press calls him Scarface. He hates it, but he uses it. The outfit runs over 10,000 speakeasies across Chicago. Beer shipments move daily through a fleet of trucks escorted by gunmen. Each crew controls a district. Each district pays tribute. Capone controls them all. By 1926, the outfit's profits exceed $60 million a year. Capone buys loyalty with cash, not fear, but fear still follows. The North Side gang, led by Weiss and Moran, sets up ambushes. On September 20th, 1926, Capone's convoy drives down Michigan Avenue. A black sedan pulls alongside. The gunmen open fire with shotguns and Tommy guns. Capone dives to the floor. His car riddled with holes, he escapes unharmed. Civilians aren't so lucky. Several pedestrians are injured. Capone retaliates instantly. His men track Weiss to Holy Name Cathedral. On October 11th, Weiss leaves a meeting, steps into the street. A car slows down. Submachine guns open fire. Weiss is hit 7 times. He dies instantly. Over 100 shell casings are recovered. No arrests. Police Commissioner Morgan Collins orders an all-out crackdown. Raids sweep across the city. Over 150 men arrested. Breweries smashed. Trucks seized. But within weeks, operations resume. Bribes circulate. Files disappear. Capone sets up headquarters at the Hawthorne Hotel in Cicero, the heart of his empire. Machine gun nests guard the doors. Cars patrol the streets. The message is clear. This is territory. Reporters call it the Chicago Front. The newspapers call him public enemy number 1. But Capone calls it business. Behind the numbers, another war brews, not for beer but for power. As 1927 dawns, Capone controls the south and west sides. The north side, under Bugs Moran, refuses to yield. The next year will turn the Cold War of beer into open warfare. The kind fought not with fists, but with machine guns. Chicago hums under the weight of fear and money. Speakeasies open every night across Volstead, Wabash, and Cicero. Beer trucks roll out before dawn. Each one carries a Thompson gun under the driver's seat. Each driver carries orders, no stops, no witnesses. Capone's empire now spans across breweries disguised as bottling plants and ice companies. Every district pays tribute to him through his collectors, cash delivered in thick envelopes, wrapped in newspaper. He signs none of it. Nothing links back to him. But everyone knows who's in charge. Capone pays his men weekly in cash. Loyalty is rewarded. Mistakes are punished quietly. Rival gangs still operate. The North Side under George Bugs Moran, remnants of the O'Banion outfit. They run their own breweries, guarded by gunmen with steel-plated cars. The streets are divided by invisible borders. Cross them and you die. The press calls it the beer wars. The police call it business as usual. On March 26, 1927, one of Capone's trucks goes missing near Lake Street. Hours later, it's found burning in a rail yard. The driver, Tony Marino, shot twice in the head. Moran's men leave a calling card, a joker playing card pinned to the seat. Capone gets the message. 2 days later, 3 of Moran's men are found in a ditch off Cicero Avenue. Each has been shot with a Thompson. Reporters count 50 shell casings at the scene. The papers print the headline, "Beer War Erupts Again." The mayor's office issues a statement condemning the violence. The same night, Capone dines with the mayor at the Lexington Hotel. They shake hands for photographers. The next morning, the story disappears from the front page. Capone's operations grow bolder. His men run breweries in Cicero, Burnham, and Melrose Park. He controls the supply lines, the truck routes, the warehouses, and the taverns. Every pint poured in half of Chicago pays him a cut. By mid-1927, Capone's empire earns nearly $1 million a week. The North Side hits back hard. Moran's men hijack a convoy on Grand Avenue, killing 4 drivers. Capone retaliates with a raid on a brewery suspected of financing the North Siders. Dozens of men are beaten, equipment destroyed, but Moran keeps fighting. He's unpredictable and he knows Capone's weakness, visibility. Capone likes attention. Moran prefers shadows. By summer, Chicago turns into a battlefield. Machine guns replace pistols. Drive-by shootings become nightly events. Police patrols double, but arrests mean nothing. Jurors are bribed, witnesses vanish, and judges are threatened. The sound of gunfire becomes part of the city's rhythm. In July, Capone's convoy is ambushed again near 22nd Street Bridge. 3 sedans box him in. His bodyguard, Frank Rio, returns fire with a Thompson. One attacker drops, the others flee. Capone escapes without a scratch. That night, Capone calls a meeting. It's held at the Hawthorne Hotel. Every district boss attends. Capone sits at the head of the table, silent, hands folded. Then he speaks. No more warnings, no more games, end it. Orders go out the next day. Through the fall of 1927, Moran's operations are hit systematically, one brewery at a time. Trucks are seized, drivers disappear, warehouses burn. Capone's men operate with military precision, but Moran survives. He mocks Capone in interviews, calling him a fat boy who hides behind his guns. Reporters love it. Capone doesn't. On September 7, 1928, federal agents raid one of Capone's breweries in Cicero. They find hundreds of barrels, crates of bottles, and payroll ledgers. But when questioned, every worker says the same thing. They don't know who owns it. The case collapses. Capone stays untouchable. Meanwhile, political pressure mounts. The U.S. Treasury begins investigating his finances. But local police are powerless. Corruption runs deep. The mayor, the city council, and even judges owe favors. Capone's lawyers ensure that nothing sticks. Still, Capone worries about Moran. The Northside gang remains a threat, armed, organized, and determined. They control several breweries on North Clark Street and maintain ties with smaller outfits. The constant skirmishes drain resources. Capone wants a final blow. Early 1929. Winter grips Chicago. Temperatures drop below freezing. Moran's gang continues hijacking beer trucks, sometimes posing as police to seize cargo. Capone decides to use the same trick, but deadlier. He calls Jack Machine Gun McGurn, his top enforcer. The plan is simple. Lure Moran's men to a fake delivery, disarm them, and eliminate them all at once. The location is chosen carefully, 2122 North Clark Street, a garage used by Moran's operation for storing liquor. The date, February 14, 1929. 2 weeks before the hit, preparations begin. McGurn rents an apartment near the garage. Capone leaves town for Florida, an alibi. Cars are obtained, a black Cadillac sedan and a stolen police car, complete with uniforms. The guns, 2 Thompsons and 2 shotguns, are oiled and ready. The morning of February 14th is bitterly cold. Snow lines the gutters. Inside the garage, 7 men wait for a shipment of Canadian whiskey. Peter Gusenberg, Frank Gusenberg, Albert Karchelik, Adam Heyer, Reinhard Schwimmer, Albert Weinschenk, and John May. Moran himself is running late. He never arrives. At 10:30 a.m., witnesses see a police car pull up outside. 2 men in uniform step out, followed by 2 others in plain clothes. They enter the garage calmly. Neighbors assume it's a raid. Inside, the officers order the men to line up against the brick wall. They obey, hands raised. No one resists. Then machine guns erupt. 2 Thompsons fire in bursts of 20 rounds each. The room fills with smoke and echoes. When it's over, 7 bodies lie crumpled against the wall. One man, Frank Gusenberg, is still alive, riddled with bullets. When police arrive minutes later, they ask who shot him. He mutters, "Nobody," and dies minutes later. The scene shocks the nation. Newspapers print the photos, the line of corpses, the wall spattered with blood, the smoking shells. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they call it. No witnesses, no arrests. Public outrage explodes. Politicians condemn the violence. President Hoover demands action. Federal agents are dispatched to Chicago. But evidence vanishes, and suspects disappear. Capone remains in Florida, smiling for photographers, claiming he knows nothing. The massacre ends the beer wars in name, but not in blood. Moran's gang collapses, scattered and leaderless. The North Side loses its grip. Capone controls nearly every barrel of beer entering the city. But the cost is immense. The massacre brings national attention. The public, once amused by gangsters, now demands justice. Capone becomes a national enemy. The police launch massive raids. Breweries across Chicago are seized. Thousands of barrels are smashed in the streets. Prohibition agents, emboldened by Washington, pursue Capone's lieutenants. Hundreds are arrested, though most walk free. Inside the outfit, paranoia grows. Capone begins sleeping in different rooms each night. His guards rotate hourly. He eats. Only food prepared by his personal chef, tasted first by another man. The empire that beer built now runs on fear. By late 1929, Capone is the undisputed ruler of Chicago's underworld, but his reign is cracking. The Thompson guns that won him the beer wars have brought federal eyes straight to his door. Spring 1930. Chicago's underworld lies under one flag, Capone's. The beer wars are over, at least in the streets. But peace has a price. Federal agents tighten the net. Prohibition still stands, and Washington wants results. The massacre has embarrassed the government. Newspapers print Capone's name daily. His face, sharp suit fedora scar, becomes a national symbol of lawlessness. He's no longer a gangster. He's a headline. Capone controls nearly every brewery in the city. The outfit owns trucks, drivers, distributors, and speakeasies. Each week, barrels move from secret plants in Cicero to hidden taverns across the south and west sides. His men guard routes with shotguns. Money flows upward, untraceable, untaxed. The system works. But the machine is too big to hide. Federal investigators from the Treasury Department's intelligence unit, the T-Men, arrive in Chicago. Among them is a quiet accountant named Frank J. Wilson. His orders: follow the money. Not the murders, not the guns. The money. Wilson begins assembling Capone's financial picture from scraps, receipts, ledgers, cash slips. He interviews bartenders, brewers, and former associates. Most refuse to speak. Some vanish before they can testify. Slowly, a pattern emerges. The outfit launders profits through fake companies and front businesses. Beer becomes the trail that leads to tax fraud. Meanwhile, the streets stay tense. Rival gangs fade, replaced by internal disputes. Capone's lieutenants, Frank Nitti, Jake Guzik, Tony Lombardo, control their own sectors. Each wants more. In August 1930, Lombardo is shot leaving a restaurant. 2 bullets to the head. No witnesses. Capone orders calm, but the killings continue. Power attracts blood. Capone's headquarters at the Lexington Hotel becomes a fortress. Guards patrol the halls armed with Thompsons. Visitors are searched. Telephones are tapped. Every word could be evidence. Still, Capone lives like royalty. He hosts parties at the Lexington, dressed in tailored suits, diamond rings, and silk ties. He donates to charity, funds soup kitchens, and pays hospital bills for the poor. To many Chicagoans, he's a paradox, a criminal who feeds the hungry, but the law doesn't see charity. It sees numbers. By early 1931, Frank Wilson has enough to act. He links Capone's spending, cars, jewelry, hotels, to unreported income. Treasury agents compile over 22,000 pages of evidence. In June, Capone is indicted on 22 counts of tax evasion. The headlines hit hard. For the first time, Al Capone faces federal prison, not for murder, but for math. The trial begins on October 6, 1931, in federal court, Chicago. Outside, reporters swarm the courthouse. Inside, Capone smiles, confident. His lawyers have bribed the jury, or so they think. Minutes before the trial opens, Judge James H. Wilkerson switches the jury with one from another courtroom. The defense is blindsided. Capone's smile fades. For 2 weeks, prosecutors present ledgers, witnesses, and testimony from bookkeepers who handled the outfit's money. Each page tells the same story. Millions in unreported income, hundreds of fake receipts, dozens of shell companies. On October 17th, the jury returns its verdict, guilty on 5 counts. Capone is sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, fined $50,000, and charged with court costs. The most powerful man in Chicago's underworld is led away in handcuffs. He starts at Cook County Jail, then moves to the federal penitentiary in Atlanta. Guards find hidden cash sewn into his mattress. Later, he's transferred to Alcatraz, isolated, watched, and stripped of influence. The beer wars, once fought with guns, end quietly with paper and ink. Back in Chicago, the outfit reorganizes. Frank Nitti takes control. Bootlegging continues, though smaller and cautious. Prohibition itself begins to crumble. In December 1933, the 21st Amendment repeals the 18th. Alcohol is legal again. Breweries reopen, licensed and taxed. The underground empire dissolves overnight. The fortune built on Prohibition collapses with the law that made it possible. The gunmen fade into the background. Some retire. Others are killed. Machine guns disappear from car trunks, replaced by contracts and politics. Chicago moves on, but not untouched. The scars of the beer wars remain. The corruption, the fear, the normalization of violence, all trace back to those years. Police departments across the country reform their tactics, introducing forensic divisions and federal coordination. The FBI expands, gaining national authority. J. Edgar Hoover calls Chicago the laboratory of organized crime. He isn't wrong. Between 1920 and 1931, over 500 gang-related murders occur in Chicago. Most unsolved. Forensic records from the era list the Thompson submachine gun as the weapon in nearly half. It becomes a symbol of the city's chaos, fast, loud, unstoppable, designed for war. Perfected by bootleggers, historians later call it the gun that made the 20s raw. But in Chicago, it was simply known as protection. Inside Alcatraz, Capone fades fast. The isolation breaks him. The syphilis he contracted years earlier worsens, attacking his brain. Guards report him talking to himself, humming songs from old saloons. His power shrinks to a cell, his empire run by others. In 1939, he's released for health reasons. He returns to Florida, living quietly at his Palm Island mansion. Once his house had hosted senators and movie stars. Now it's guarded by silence. Capone spends his last years fishing, gardening, and sitting in a wicker chair by the water. His mind drifts in and out. Sometimes he still talks about Chicago, the breweries, the trucks, the men who never came back. On January 25, 1947, Al Capone dies of cardiac arrest. He's 48. His funeral draws hundreds. Reporters gather outside the gates, cameras flashing. Inside, family and former associates stand in silence. No one mentions beer. The legacy of the beer wars extends beyond Capone. Prohibition, meant to cleanse America, instead created an industry of crime. Breweries became battlegrounds. Men who once sold drinks became generals. Cities learned how profit and power could coexist outside the law. When the law returned, the system stayed. The corruption networks built for alcohol soon served gambling, narcotics, and extortion. The modern American mob was born from the same kegs that filled Chicago's alleys. The beer wars turned ordinary streets into war zones. Grocery stores hid stills in their basements. Trucks marked ice carried barrels of malt. Police uniforms appeared on gangsters, and gangsters pretended to be police. Lines blurred between law and crime, business and war. Even after repeal, the memory lingered. Chicago's police archives kept photographs of the St. Valentine's Day scene. 7 men lined against a wall, motionless. The bullets had long been cleaned up, but the wall itself, pockmarked and cracked, remained evidence. Years later, it was dismantled brick by brick, sold to collectors. Tourists still visit its fragments. By the end of the 1930s, organized crime evolved. The gunfights stopped, replaced by boardrooms and bribes. The same discipline that once managed beer routes now managed unions and casinos. The men who survived the beer wars became the architects of national syndicates. The Chicago outfit endured, quieter, wealthier, more cautious. The machine guns disappeared, but the organization behind them stayed alive. When reporters asked Capone's former lieutenant, Frank Nitti, what he missed most about the old days, he answered, the beer. It was cleaner business. The beer wars changed more than crime. They changed policing, journalism, and politics. They gave rise to the idea of the public enemy. They transformed the image of the gangster from street thug to national icon. From Hollywood to radio, stories of the era became legend, dramatized, exaggerated, but rooted in truth, a city that let profit decide its morals. The sound of Tommy guns over Chicago wasn't just noise. It was the sound of a nation learning that laws can't erase demand, only redirect it. In the years following Capone's downfall, federal power expanded. The Treasury's victory proved that organized crime could be dismantled through finances, not just force. The Internal Revenue Service gained new authority, creating models still used to prosecute criminal empires. Every major mob case that followed, from New York to Las Vegas, traced its methods back to Frank Wilson's quiet accounting of beer profits. The beer wars ended, but the playbook survived. By the mid-20th century, Chicago rebuilt itself. Streets once lined with armed convoys became commuter routes. Breweries reopened legally under new names: Schlitz, Pabst, Miller. The beer flowed again, this time taxed, regulated, and advertised on billboards instead of whispered through passwords. But behind every pint, there lingered a memory that once this same drink had cost men their lives. For historians, the beer wars remain a lesson in cause and effect, how an attempt to enforce morality bred corruption, violence, and empire. How a ban on alcohol gave birth to machine guns in American cities. A war fought not for ideology, but for barrels of beer. And though the streets were eventually cleaned and the blood washed away, Chicago would never forget what it sounded like when business became war.